Hi, everybody. I'm Sadiqa Reynolds, President and CEO of the Louisville Urban League, and I'm really honored to be here with you today to talk about a woman's perception of Black men, trauma, and mental health. I certainly won't pretend to be an expert. I mean, I'm an expert at some things. I'm an expert at being a woman. I'm an expert at being a Black woman. I'm an expert at loving Black men. And so I hope that I can give you some insight, but I certainly would not pretend to have all of the answers or even to represent every woman's perspective. I want to thank Lawrence Wilbin for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to do anything for my friends and former colleagues, and he happens to be both. And so I'm really honored to be with you all. And I'm very thankful that you brothers are actually having this conversation. I think it's a conversation that is so important, and it's important for you to have it in rooms where you can be safe and be honest about the trauma that you have experienced. And I think it's important for Black women to also have conversations and to be honest about the trauma that we've experienced. I especially think it's important for us to create those safe spaces to have these conversations, not just about the trauma that Black men are experiencing or have experienced as a result of the relationship with Black women or society, America, but also even the trauma that Black men are experiencing at the hands of other Black men. I think that is a very difficult conversation for us to have about how much we hurt us. And it's hard to have it because there are very few places where we can be honest about that, where we can be truthful without feeling like we're being overly critical. I think so often, I can tell you as a Black woman, I am so protective of our people that I have a very difficult time talking about our own accountability in um, in certain circles with certain people there to witness it. And it's not because I don't think that we need to have accountability. We do, but we are so criticized. You all are so criticized. It it's important, I think, that particularly someone with my platform, that I use it to build us up and not tear us down. And sometimes you really do have to tear down in order to rebuild. And that is so very complicated. And so, of all the conversations that I've had lately, I think this is one of the most important. And I'm really honored that we are having this conversation and that I'm allowed to be a part of it. This community, our community, Black people, men and women, quite frankly, but I know we're here to talk about Black men, the stigma of mental health, the stigma of being mentally ill, the stigma of depression, the stigma of anxiety. Those things keep Black men from addressing their mental health needs. I think we have been painted for so long as people who are so strong, who are so resilient, who can overcome anything. And so it seems to me that Black men, when you have stress, when you have struggle, when you feel overwhelmed, you may feel like you're somehow less of a man because you're feeling that way. And so then what happens? You just push down, push down, push down. And the trauma is never dealt with. And the challenge with just pushing things down, is that they're going to come up in some way, shape, or form. They're going to come out, and sometimes those things are going to land on people who love you, people who care about you, people who would do anything to see you healthy, people who need you, and do harm to those people. But the first person who is harmed is you, because you're walking around with all of this trauma, all of this stress, not addressing it, and it's coming out. And sometimes it comes out in an explosion, and sometimes it just trickles out. And I wish that more Black men would be honest about the pain of what they're dealing with and why they're dealing with it. When I think about so many Black men that I know and love and have cared about, and their relationships, sometimes with their mother. You honor your mother. In many cases, we have mothers who, raised young boys to men on their own. And so I know brothers are so thankful for those women, those strong women who worked 2 jobs, who did what they had to do, who knew how to make, a steak out of bologna. You want to honor. But where is the safe space to talk about the mistakes that mother might have made? Where is the space to talk about the pain of the Black man who fathered you, who wasn't there or couldn't be relied on? Where do you get to have that conversation in a way that allows you to finally get to healing? Because I don't care what any of us say, it is traumatic to be brought into the world by 2 people and to then have one exit and to have questions about that part of your life. Or maybe in some cases, we have families that were intact, but there are other, abuses, other things that are happening. Where is the space to say, I had a lot of things that were great in my life, but then this happened? Where is it that Black men get to say they were molested? Who do you say that to a woman that you're in love with, that you want to marry? Do you say that to your friends? Sexual assault and trauma for a woman is hard enough to reveal. Where does a man go who's experienced that? What happens with that trauma that never gets unpacked? What happens when we're constantly every day dealing with racism, dealing with the heaviness of it, dealing with the awareness of our skin color, dealing with and hearing, that you are making less money than your counterpart who is white. Sometimes loving women who make more. Where do you get to talk about what that feels like to your masculinity? And I'm not saying any of the feelings are right, but I can't say that any of them are wrong. I think we all have a right to feel how we feel. The challenge is, how do you address it? And what happens when it's unaddressed? What happens when you have this pain, when you have this anguish, when you have this trauma, and it just sits there? Where does it go? Where does it go for the little boy? Where does it go for the teenager? Where does it go for the man? How does it show up in your love life? And do you think about that? Do you brothers think about what you are bringing to the person you choose to spend your life with? Do you think about what you're bringing to your children when you don't address the trauma that you've experienced? What is the impact on your family structure? What happens in a family when a child sees a father who says he does love a mother? He is in the house, but he hasn't unpacked that trauma, hasn't healed from past trauma. And so it comes out. What does it teach that next generation? Um, there has to be a safe space for Black men to talk about the burden of being a Black man. And it doesn't mean that any of you would, say, oh, I'd rather be a white man or I'd rather be anything. But it's just really creating the space to deal with the reality of the pain of even admitting your own failures, but also being able to connect those failures to events that maybe have happened in your life. I think we kind of live in this way that we think we can silo the pain. We think we can have this experience and then go on, and then 2 years later when this happens, there's a reason that there's so much violence in our community. You cannot constantly be oppressed and pushed down and made to feel less than and see yourself reflected on the news and in books and in stories as a negative human, as a negative being, as less than human, and think that that's not going to have some impact. And if we don't address it, what happens? What happens to your family? What happens to your children? What happens to you? I think that Black men, like all men, I think, want to be seen as caregivers, want to be seen as providers. I don't know about caregivers. I don't know if that was the right word. Want to be seen as providers, protectors, sort of all powerful for the people they love and their families, for their friends, their community. But what happens when the ways that you judge your success at those things, when you feel like you can't reach those goals, when you feel like I'm not making enough money, or I'm not, able to protect this queen, I'm not able to whatever, or I keep letting myself down. But I mean, if that's the tape that is playing in your head, you have to say that out loud to somebody who is only invested in your healing, not someone who has some other agenda, not someone who wants to manipulate. Um, but then you have to also be concerned with your manipulation because of whatever, maybe it's, past trauma again, maybe it's the nature of the relationship, maybe it's your inability to work things out in a healthy way. I mean, when you don't admit what's going on with you and try to fix it, your family can't be fixed. Your relationship can't be fixed. Your children are going to go through so much trying to figure out, trying to fix, trying to heal, trying to understand, trying to honor you in the same way that you're trying to honor that parent that raised you, or those parents that raised you, or those grandparents. It is good to honor those who sacrifice for us, but it is necessary to recognize maybe what they didn't do. It's important to talk about what you would do different. It's important to acknowledge that for yourself, um, because I think our community is in a lot of pain. I think, our divorce rate is high. This country is a mess. This country is racist. There is no safe place to be Black in this country. Systems are against us, policies are against us. But we owe it to each other to be for each other. And if we can't at least be for everybody, right? Like all Black people in general, can we at least decide to be the best version of ourselves for the people we claim to love, the people who are relying on us? And if you are going to be the best version of yourself, how do you do that without getting help? What Black man in America has not experienced trauma? What Black man hasn't? How do we handle it? You can't push it down. You can't push it down far enough that it is not going to come back up. You can't hide from it. You cannot run from it. You have to talk about it. You have to figure out healthy ways to cope with the trauma of our everyday living. Because not treating it, not talking about it, not addressing it, not being honest about it is killing you and it's killing us. And we cannot afford to lose you. There's nobody listening to this. There is no person sitting in a room somewhere hearing my voice that we can afford to spare. So if you have been struggling and, you're feeling like, I can hang, I can handle it. I'm tough. Listen, you are tough. You are strong. You already handled it. But let's work on fixing it. Let's work on doing enough so that we don't make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Let's work on loving ourselves enough to really try to live our best lives. And if ever anybody has told you you don't deserve it, like that you have done something that was so horrible that you don't deserve to have a good life, talk to somebody about that. Because all of us walking this earth deserve forgiveness for something, whether people know or don't know. Address it so that you never make the same mistakes again. And so you don't have to live that Facebook life. That Facebook life is that fake life. You put those pictures up, you smile, you do all that, but nobody knows the pain behind it all. And I really like social media. I try to really be honest about, today I'm having a bad day or whatever. Or if you don't post anything on bad days, that's fine. But we got to stop with the fake lives, because there are people trying to live up to your fake life. you can't even live up to it. Get the help you need. Save your sons. Save your daughters. Save these babies that are acting out because they are experiencing so much trauma. Save these young men that are participating in gangs, are being violent, because maybe they're not getting something at home. I get it. I get all of the political stuff. I get the racism. Believe me, I run a civil rights organization. Racism is real. But please do your part to save you. That thing that you do for you, to make you whole, to make you complete, to make you healthy, that will change the world for you and the people who love you. So I will come here to talk with you all anytime about Black men and trauma and mental health and how that impacts Black women and how Black women impact you and how the workplace is killing you too and us too. There are so many things for us to talk about. I'm not a mental health therapist though. I don't know how to fix your thing, but I know that unless you address it, you can't fix it either. So go use this group, talk to each other, but take it to the next level, because there is an entire community that needs you to be healthy, to be strong, to live really your best life. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lawrence, for inviting me. I wish everybody well. Everybody. Thank you.